I am Sophia Guinness. I'm our Manager of Public Involvement. Unlike the title of this slide, our Outreach Coordinator, James Makoviak, had to unexpectedly be out today. So we're filling in for him as we talk about what's going on in Eden Prairie over the next year or so and what we've gotten done so far. On the call with me as well is David Davies, who will help us kind of moderate any questions that come into chat, but I think we have a small enough group that if there's just any discussion to be had, we can just have it. And we also have with us Michelle Nelson, who is our construction extraordinaire, kind of leads this side of the project for us, and as well as Hytham, who really is our in the field guy. So the plan for this evening is we'll give a short presentation kind of highlighting the construction activity that's happened in Eden Prairie over this last year and kind of what to expect over the next year. We should have plenty of time at the end for people to ask questions. And one of the best way to ask questions is even as we're speaking, just put a comment in chat. David will read those out as we get to the appropriate points in the presentation. So we'll start kind of walking through it all, and let me know if the slides aren't tracking for any reason. So a few years ago now, we broke ground on this project. We can see some of our Eden Prairie faces and friends with us that day, and we've come a long ways since then. Today, we're going to do, like I said, a little overview and of the past year and what to expect. As all of you are probably very familiar with the project already, we are 14.5 miles, we have 16 stations, and not only can you connect to points along the line, such as Hopkins or downtown Minneapolis, you're also connected to our regional network, allowing yourself to go both on the Blue Line all the way to Mall of America or to St. Paul. We're going to kind of walk through the alignment a little bit in Eden Prairie. And to start out with, we have our Southwest Station. And then from that, we have a bridge structure that flies over Prairie Center Drive. Now, to put plans into reality, here are some pictures of what we've been actually doing on the ground. So to build this Southwest Station, there's a lot of soils to be corrected. There's structures to be built. So in the photo here, you see us expanding the parking ride structure, and this is actually part of the station itself. And then some of the infrastructure needs lots and lots of piles. So that is what we've been doing. Here are some photos of what will look like when it's done. So while it might seem like a bunch of dirt and pounding, in the future it'll be a very beautiful structure that'll both be a welcoming space for both our train riders and our bus riders. So just a couple views of that. Kind of at night, looking from further away. And then, kind of coming from the station, still seeing Southwest in the corner here, we take a bridge structure across Prairie Center Drive. For any of you that are by there, that bridge is really coming together. So here is plans to reality. This is kind of looking east towards the bridge itself across the roadway, kind of in that parking lot itself. And while this is before the beams were set, working with the Eden Prairie team, the Southwest team really made sure that this bridge was aesthetically pleasing and has some really awesome concrete insets. If you ever have time to wander that way, you can see the details that are this bridge. As we move on from the Southwest Station, our next station along the line is Eden Prairie Town Center. And that's also where we kind of connect up with Flying Cloud Drive. And I'll show you some of the work that we've done the last year in this area. So here's another station becoming a reality. This is the Eden Prairie Town Center station. You can see the structure starting to take shape and some of our retaining walls. We have quite a few retaining walls overall on the project. And that the last shot was our wonderful winter months. Here's a rendering of what the finished station will look like in a much warmer time of the year, including some of the associated landscaping. Another view looking opposite direction towards Flying Cloud Drive. And I have a couple images of the roadways, and I'm bringing these forth just because for all of our residents and businesses that were along Flying Cloud Drive or Town Center Place, we had quite the construction season and had the roadways torn up for most of it. So you can kind of see the finished condition close to Town Center Place, as well as Flying Cloud Drive. Now, we'll get into this as we go through what to expect in next year, but we have more work to do on Flying Cloud Drive. We were able to finish kind of the first 2 phases, and we have 2 more to go. As we move kind of north or east along the corridor, we come into a lot of bridge structures that we have. We both have the the Valley View Bridge as well as the 9 Mile Creek Bridge. I'll have some photos of that. And all these bridges together really just kind of show the structure that is Eden Prairie. And luckily, we've gotten through much of the construction of a lot of them. So next year, in a lot of ways, will be calmer in terms of bridges. So here's a view of our Valley View Road Bridge. It's been kind of ongoing, and the crew's been working on the deck. Just recently, they're starting to take off some of this formwork that you see there. Here's a photo of us pouring the 9 Mile Creek Bridge, just kind of getting that deck in place. And then kind of next along the line is our Golden Triangle Station and the associated area there. So again, plans to reality. The Golden Triangle Station has greatly taken shape over the last year. And you can see kind of not only the station itself, but the support for the tracks that come around the station. A lot of Eden Prairie, we have soil correction to do, and so they do a lot of either piling or kind of removing and replacing soil to get it to be a place that we can build LRT over. When the station is finished, this is what your reality will end up looking like. And moving on, right after we leave that station, we have the kind of a big task to do, which is to get over 212. So we have a fairly large Shady Oak Bridge that both goes over Shady Oak itself and then the highway. We then come into our last Eden Prairie station, which is the City West station. It's located right by Highway 62. And then we dive under the highway in a tunnel. So a lot of work has happened in this area as well to advance the project. Here is a view of our Shady Oak Bridge. Many of you got the lovely pleasure of seeing road closures both on Shady Oak and on Flying Cloud Drive over the last few weeks as we've set these spans at the beams for the bridge itself. We still have the portion that'll go over the highway itself to set, as well as a lot of deck work to advance on the top of these beams over the next year. Here's what our City West station will look like once we fully hit reality, and not just construction chaos. And then lastly, this is an image from earlier in the year of when they kind of finished the structure of the northern half of the tunnel, and we're able to realign the roadway so that basically a lot of digging can now start on the southern end to advance our tunnel. So what can we expect in the next year when it comes to Southwest LRT in Eden Prairie? We have a lot of work to do in that Southwest station that we mentioned. Most of the bridges still have a significant amount of deck work to complete, though most of the structures are getting much nearer to completion. And so a lot of that initial kind of piling and moving of things and all that is most noticeable, even some of the beam setting, is really getting complete on most of these. We have our stations to advance, as well as a lot of work on Flying Cloud Drive that will have roadway impacts, and I have a slide with that. Like I said, advancing some of our bridges and advancing Highway 62. Here's kind of an image of where we'll be working in Eden Prairie over the next year, and really it is still kind of the whole thing, but just kind of highlighting some of those areas. The phase 3 and 4 on Flying Cloud Drive will necessitate some lane impacts. And then just the continuing of our major structures and connecting infrastructure as we make our way through the year. So that's kind of a high-level overview. Of course, we'll take tons of questions about that at the end. But just a little kind of last-minute summary of what James's efforts kind of out in the corridor. So one of the best ways to continue to get project updates is to subscribe to our construction update. It goes out bi-weekly in the winter and sometimes and more often as needed as we get into the busy parts of the year. We always have the construction hotline, and I have the number in the next slide. And James himself receives many calls and emails directly from residents of Eden Prairie, and he very much encourages you all to reach him that way. So with that, here's both the construction hotline number for you to reach, as well as James's contact information. And like today, unexpected things sometimes come up. So it's always beneficial to know our construction hotline number. James is always a wonderful resource, and he very much likes to get direct contact, but for some reason he's not, he might be out. You have a construction issue right away that needs addressing, calling the hotline. Basically the team of folks that are on this call can address that relatively quickly. So both are wonderful resources. And of course, our project website, as always, has a sleuth of information for those for reference. And if you're a Twitter follower or a Twitterer, we also have that as a way to follow us. So that was kind of a quick overview of everything to expect in Eden Prairie, as well as some of the progress that we've made over the last year. There's really, Eden Prairie has been a hotbed of our activities, with basically every inch of our alignment through the city under construction at various points during the year. So at this point, I'll turn it over to David to help moderate our questions.
Sophia, thanks, Sophia. I am turning my camera on so people can see my face too. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so if anyone, you're welcome to continue to put a question in the chat if you'd like, if you are able to do so. I'd also open it up to anyone that's on a phone right now that's been patiently waiting to answer or ask a question, to unmute yourself and ask a question if you're on a phone as well, or on video. All right, I'm not seeing anything in chat right yet.
Hey, Dave Lindahl, City of Eden Prairie, got a question for you.
Please, Dave.
And this is the question.
Yeah.
When is this project going to be completed? Do you guys have a new date established yet? I'm assuming not, since it'd probably be in the newspapers, but.
Dave, we are still working through that. For the rest of the folks that are on the line, our an opening date had been targeted at 2023, but there's a couple elements in the city of Minneapolis that we know are going to take a little extra time. And those two elements are something that's called a secant wall. So it's just a different method of construction that we're proposing to use to construct part of the Kenilworth Tunnel. So there's a spot in Minneapolis where it's just really tight next to Calhoun Isles. And as we began constructing that tunnel, we noticed that there was some settlement. And so we kind of adjusted our construction methods to be responsive to the structure itself and the tight nature of the corridor. We also have more information about our corridor protection wall that is kind of in the our very end of our alignment between our Bryn Mawr station and our Royalston station on the project. And we know both those elements are going to take us a little extra time, so we won't be able to meet our original opening date. We're still in the process of kind of diving into those items and trying to find as much time savings as we can, but we hope to have more information later this year to give you the new opening date. So still a work in progress.
Thank you.
Certainly.
we might have a quiet group, so we'll just maybe give it a few more questions or a few more minutes to see if anybody wants to put a question. Otherwise, we can say goodbye, and I'll just stay on the line for just a little bit longer, maybe with David, just to see if anybody else kind of pops in late to the meeting.